Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. I would like to apologize. I am a little bit sick. I don't know why I woke up this morning and my nose was very stuffy. So if I sound a little off, that would be why. I'm also back at school, so sound may be a little bit different than the last couple of videos, but that is not a problem, hopefully. So today we're going to take a look at the Atlanta Reign. The Atlanta Reign finished the 2019 season in 6th place overall with a 16-12 record, a plus 19 differential. Of course, they had that very impressive late season run, undefeated in Stage 4. I believe they won like at least 8 in a row, or at least 9 in a row, because they finished off their season at the Atlanta homestands. They won some games there. I think they won one before that, so they may have finished their season 10-0 before going into the playoffs, knocking the San Francisco Shock into the losers bracket, and then that was kind of it for them. Then they lost to New York, and then they lost to Hangzhou, and their season was over. But they had a very good season for a team that I don't think a lot of people expected to be that good. They had a very good season, and they made some changes in the offseason. Funny Astro, of course, left and signed with the Philadelphia Fusion. I believe that had to be a trade because he was under contract, so they probably traded him. Daco was released, and then N Layer was released, and he has retired. So, a couple changes to this team, but overall, I think this team is going to be better this season based on the changes they made. But let's take a look at what they have now. We're going to start with their DPS, and we're going to start with their superstar DPS player, the guy who really kind of carried them a lot last season, and that is Erster. Of course, you may remember him from his Tracer 6K that he had. That was pretty impressive. Erster's a very good player. Very solid player. I think he was the best player on this team as a whole last season. I really like what Erster does, so I'm excited to see more of what he does because I think he is a very fun player to watch. And when we're in a DPS heavy meta, we're going to see a lot of him, and I think we'll play pretty well. Of course, Baby Bay is returning to this team. I don't think he's going to be playing as much, just based on what we have seen, but he's a hit scan player. I don't think he's going to be playing a ton. I think he'll probably be one of their main hit scan guys, but I think Erster is going to be paired alongside Edison, who is also a hit scan player. He is coming from GC Busan Wave, but he's a very good player. He is really good. He just turned 18 in November, so he is a player that I'm 100% expecting to pair very well with Erster. I think they're going to be a really good team. I think that this damage lineup is very good, and you have Erster and Edison as kind of that Korean line, and then you also have Sharp, who is a bit of a hit scan player as well. He plays the Tracer, the McCree, the Widow, the Sombra. Baby Bay playing the McCree, the Widowmaker, Soldier, Hanzo, and Reaper. That's kind of what you have there. So you really have like 3 hit scan DPS players on this team. Sharp, of course, coming from Team Envy. He is a Swedish player. So they have a lot that they can do in terms of damage dealers, but they do have a lot that do a lot of the same thing. Erster is really their only projectile DPS player. So I would expect a ton of Erster play. I don't expect Erster to ever really come out. And then I'm sure we'll kind of see different strategies catered to Baby Bay and Edison and Sharp if they need them that way. But I think Edison will probably be their main guy. I think Baby Bay is kind of that personality, really, for this team. He's kind of the guy who's very much the face of the team. Him and Dogman are really big like faces of the team. So I'd expect a lot of that coming from those guys. But this is a really good damage lineup. I would say Erster Edison, arguably the best starting damage lineup in the league, potentially. Maybe not. Maybe I'm a little quick on the draw, but I think that this is a very good lineup, and I am excited to see what they do. I think that it's better than what they had last season with N Layer. Obviously, the only, it's Baby Bay is still there. N Layer, who I think was the weaker part of that lineup, is out. Bring in Sharp, bring in Edison. I think this is going to be a very, very, very good team going forward. Next, we have their tanks. They have three returning and one new. Both of their main tanks are returning. Gator, who was on a two-way contract last season and played most of the playoffs, is now back on a full contract. He is no longer a two-way player. I would expect that he is a very, very, very strong starter possibility. I thought he was very good in the playoffs last season. I thought he was one of the best Sigmas. We don't know if he'll be playing Sigma or not, because they also brought in Hawk from Atlanta Academy, who was playing Sigma in Gauntlet. So we'll see then. But Gator, very good player. I wouldn't be surprised if he's their starting main tank. Obviously, they have Pokepo as well, who was the starting main tank last season, which he still could be the starting main tank. But Gator, I think, gives you more flexibility in terms of overall tank play. You could have Pokepo and Gator playing together if you have Gator as your Sigma, if you think he's the better Sigma than, say, Hawk or FRD. Like, FRD wasn't playing in the playoffs because they didn't have, or Fried, I should say, because they didn't have him playing that much because they had Gator on the Sigma, so he didn't play in the playoffs. I think Hawk is probably the better player than Fried, which is why they brought Hawk up. He also just turned 18 in September. Hawk, Gator, Pokepo, I would expect that to be the three tanks that play the most. Fried will play every so often. He had a couple big moments, but he wasn't incredible, in my opinion. But he wasn't bad. He wasn't holding this team back. He played a lot for Daco late in the season. But I would expect Hawk, Gator, Pokepo, they're going to be the main three we're going to see. I wouldn't be surprised if Gator, Hawk is their tank line. That's a very good tank line. This team was very good last season with Gator in. Gator and Hawk, of course, were the tank line for Atlanta Academy, who got second at the Gauntlet. They had to beat Runaway to get there, and they lost Element Mystic, who was really, really good. But they had to beat some really good teams in the Gauntlet to get to that point, and they got there. They were very dominant. So that's a huge, huge, huge thing to note about a lot of this team, that they have been bringing up players who had success at the Gauntlet, and this is an organization that I really trust in terms of developing players. They've done a really good job at developing players so far. When you look at how good Gator is, when you look at the fact that they brought Dogman up, you look at the success that Atlanta Academy has had since they have joined Contenders, they have been one of the best teams in Contenders, especially North America, but just in general, they've been one of the best teams. They got second at the Gauntlet, right? When all the best teams in the world were invited, they got second. And sure, they had some Korean players, and actually, they might not have any Korean players, but they had some non-North American players. But as a whole, they were really, really good. You know, they had 4 players from the US, a player from Germany, and a player from the UK. That was their roster. And a lot of those players are now in the Overwatch League, or came from the Overwatch League. But I have tons of hope for the additions that they brought up from the team. Gator now being a full player on the roster, I think, is a very good move. And then Hawk, I think, is a very good addition as well. So, like I said, Gator, Hawk probably will be what we see from them starting for the most part. But I wouldn't be surprised if Pokebo still gets a lot of play, because I actually didn't think he was that bad last season. He wasn't the best main tank, but he wasn't awful, and I thought that he did his job pretty well. But we could see Gator now move to the main tank role and Hawk move to the Sigma, if that's what they want. But I think just having the tank player pool that they have is really good for them. I think it's really helpful for them, because it allows them to basically say, hey, we can play Gator in the Sigma if we feel like we need him there. We can play Pokebo in the main tank if we feel like we need him there. Or we can play Gator in the main tank with Hawk in the flex tank if we need him there. And I think that gives you a ton of flexibility. But I also think they brought up Hawk for a reason. I also think they just want to have a 12-player roster. Right now they only have 10. But they have teased, from what I have been told and from what I have seen, they've teased that they will have a 12-player roster. So likely they will add 2 more support players because they only have 2. So likely that is where they will add some more depth, is to their support line, because they don't have any backups, which they didn't have backups to Dogman kind of halfway through the season when Kodak went down to Atlanta Academy. But they always had Funny Astro on a 2-way contract and they needed him. So I would expect that. We can talk about the sports real quick. Massa and Dogman, I think they're both very good. Massa, I think, was one of those Lucio players who was secretly really good. He was a lot better than what people give him credit for. I think he's very, very good, and I would expect a lot out of him. I think he will be one of the big, best players on this team, I guess. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Dogman impressed me throughout the season. I wasn't super sold by him when he first came up, but I think he is very, very good, and I'm excited to see what he does. Of course, he has a long history of playing through the Overwatch scene. Of course, he was also a player that was with Atlanta Academy and moved up to join the Atlanta Reign. So I think this is a very good addition. Well, not a very good addition, very good player that they keep. I think their support line is very good. It's probably the weakest part of this team, but that's just because there's not a lot of depth to it. But if I'm saying that this is the weakest part of their team, and I think it's a really good support lineup, that's very, very good. This team doesn't have a really weak point, I think. I think it's a very solid roster with a lot of very good players. Their damage lineup in particular is really, really good. When you can run Erster Edison, or you can put in Baby Bay, or you can put in Sharp, you have some different types of play styles. Though a similar hero pool, you have some different play styles that you can use on different maps, and also different personalities that'll help with that. I think it's probably a little weird that they only have 1 flex DPS player, because most teams have multiple of both kinds of DPS, and they only have Erster, which Erster's really good. So if you don't have to run someone other than Erster, why would you? But it is something that I would kind of take note of, is they do only have 1 flex DPS player, which most teams don't do. And in the event that Erster gets hurt, or for some reason the meta is a hero that he just can't play, that is something they have to worry about. But Edison, or Baby Bay, I'm sure that they have a deep enough hero pool, even though they're hit scan players mostly, that they can fill in and play some of these other heroes. But I think they're going to probably bring in another main support, another flex support. They've said they won't have a 12-man roster. They have a 10-man roster right now. There's definitely some players out there that are not on the team that could be signed, that are main supports and flex supports that we've seen come and go. Sleepy could be someone they sign. I don't think they will. I don't think Sleepy is going to be on an Overwatch League roster this season. I just think that that ship has sailed, most likely. So we will see what happens with him in the coming few weeks. Obviously, season's coming up, so we'll see. But I think that what we have here is a very good roster. Possibly, maybe this may be a bit sacrilegious. Possibly the best roster in North America. I think that we have to look at the NYXL roster, and I said North America. I meant in the Atlantic. I can't think straight. This sickness is doing more than I thought. Possibly the best roster in the Atlantic Conference. New York, I think, is still very, very good, but I think when you look at this roster, you can say, okay, this might be the best roster in the Atlantic. I think they will definitely be a playoff team. I think they will definitely be a top 6 playoff team. I don't think they're going to have to play in the play-in tournament once again. I could see them being a top 5 team. I could see them being a top 3 team. I could see them being a top 4 team. I could see them once again just getting by at number 6. I think they're a very good team. I don't know necessarily if they will be the finals team. I don't know if they're going to win the whole thing, but we saw what they can do. We saw how good they are. They beat New York twice. They beat San Francisco in the playoffs. They were the only team to even take a map off of San Francisco in the playoffs. I remember Moth in an interview saying that he knew that the Atlanta game would be tough because he knows the way they play, and he thought that they were a very good team as a whole. So This is a very good team, and I want to make sure that people understand that this is a very good team. I think they're going to be possibly the best team in the Atlantic, though I don't think they are, but I think they have a very good chance to get there if they reach their high and they're able to like peak very very well and they're able to stick with that. But I think this is a team to look out for as a whole, and I think they're going to be one of the teams to make a run deep into the season. But that is all I have for you today. If you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing. Let me know your thoughts on this team in the comments down below. But I'm going to get out of here, so thank you once again for watching. Hope you all have a wonderful week, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.